She pointed at the billionaire and said something that froze everyone around. No one expected those words from a poor, barefoot girl on the street. But when she whispered, "That's my father," the world stopped for him. This story will break your heart and heal it at the same time. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love knowing which part of the world our stories reach. It was another cold morning in the city. Rainwater dripped from broken roofs, and children with empty hands chased dreams they could never afford to catch. Among them was Lila, a 10-year-old girl who sold flowers near the traffic lights. Her clothes were torn, but her smile never gave up. Every morning, she waited by the same corner, hoping someone would stop. Not just for flowers, but maybe for her story, too. That day, a black limousine stopped. The door opened slowly, and a tall man in a royal blue suit stepped out. He was known by everyone in the city, Ethan Grayson, the billionaire who owned half of downtown. His eyes were sharp, his voice cold, and his life, they said, perfect. Lila approached him shyly. "Sir, would you like to buy some flowers?" Ethan looked down at her small hands, dirty, trembling, yet hopeful. He was about to walk away when something in her eyes stopped him. There was familiarity, a strange feeling he couldn't explain. He cleared his throat. "What's your name?" "Lila," she said softly. "Lila." "Grayson." The name hit him like thunder. He froze. Grayson, his own last name. He knelt down, staring at her. "Where did you hear that name?" Lila looked confused. "My mom told me." "Before she left." Ethan's world blurred for a moment. He felt his heart race, old memories flashing back. A love he'd lost years ago. A woman who vanished without goodbye. "Your mother's name?" he whispered. Lila smiled faintly. "Her name was Anna." Ethan stood completely still. That was her. Anna, the woman he once loved, the one who disappeared 10 years ago, pregnant. He felt his legs weaken. He couldn't speak. The crowd around them moved, but time had stopped for him. "Do you know your father?" Ethan asked, his voice barely audible. Lila shook her head. "No one ever told me. Mom said he left before I was born." Ethan turned away, hiding his trembling hands. His chest burned with a truth he wasn't ready to face. Could it be her? Could this little girl be his? Before he could say anything, his driver called, "Sir, we're late for the meeting." Ethan looked back once more, but Lila was already gone, vanished into the crowd, just like her mother did years ago. He stood there, rain mixing with tears he didn't admit were his. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt empty. That night he couldn't sleep. The girl's eyes haunted him, and the name, Grayson, kept echoing in his mind. Somewhere in the dark, he whispered to himself, "I have to find her again." The next morning, Ethan sent his assistant on a mission. Find the little flower girl from the traffic lights. He didn't explain why, only said, "She's important." For days they searched every corner, every stall, every street. No one knew her full name, but everyone knew the girl who sold flowers with a smile. "She comes and goes," a vendor said. "Sometimes she sleeps near the train station." That evening, Ethan went there himself. The sight broke him. Children wrapped in thin blankets, their dreams buried under hunger and dust. Then he saw her, Lila, sitting on a broken bench, clutching her basket of wilted flowers. She looked up and gasped. "You came back?" Ethan nodded, kneeling down beside her. "I wanted to see you again." She smiled shyly. "Most people don't come back." "I'm not most people," he said softly. "Can I ask you something, Lila?" "Your mother. When did she pass?" Her expression changed, sad, distant. 3 years ago. She got sick. I tried to help her, but her voice cracked. She told me before she went to never stop smiling. She said my smile makes the world kinder. Ethan felt something inside him break. The little girl was strong, too strong for her age. He took a deep breath. "Do you remember anything else she said? About your father, maybe?" Lila hesitated, then pulled a folded photo from her pocket. "She left me this. Said one day, I'll understand." Ethan's hands shook as he opened it. A picture of Anna smiling in a field of sunflowers. and beside her him, younger, carefree, in love. His knees went weak. He closed his eyes, whispering, "It's me." "You knew her?" Lila asked, curious. Ethan looked at her, tears welling up. "Yes, she was someone I loved very much." Lila smiled sadly. "Then you must be kind, too." Ethan almost laughed at the innocence in her words. "Not always," he said, "but maybe I could be again." He looked around the cold street, the shadows of forgotten children sleeping nearby. "Do you live here?" "Sometimes," she replied softly. "Sometimes in the old church when it rains." He felt his heart tighten. "That's not a place for you." He stood up. "Come with me." Lila's eyes widened. "Where?" "Somewhere safe." She hesitated. "Why?" Ethan looked at her, his voice trembling. "Because your mother would want me to." Slowly, she nodded and placed her tiny hand in his. Together they walked toward his car. For the first time in years, Ethan felt purpose. Back at his mansion, the maids gasped when he entered with the little girl. "Prepare a room," he ordered. "She's staying." Lila looked around in awe. The chandelier lights, the gold-framed walls, the grand piano. It was another world. "This can't be real," she whispered. Ethan knelt beside her. "It is now." But deep down, he knew a storm was coming. Because bringing her home meant bringing the truth with her, a truth the world would never forget. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the marble floors of the mansion. Lila woke up in a soft bed for the first time in her life. Her small hands ran over the blankets as if trying to prove they were real. Downstairs, Ethan was already waiting, sipping coffee but unable to focus on anything. When she entered the room, wearing a clean white dress one of the maids had found, the air shifted. She looked like Anna, not just her face, even the way she tilted her head. The same curious sparkle in her eyes. "Morning, Mr. Ethan," she said shyly. He smiled faintly. "Just Ethan is fine." She nodded and sat at the table. "I don't know how to eat this fancy food," she admitted. "Then we'll learn together," he said softly. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through that empty house. The maids whispered among themselves. They'd never seen their boss smile like this. Over the next few days, Ethan found himself drawn to her kindness, her simplicity. She asked questions about everything, the paintings, the cars, the sky outside. One afternoon, she found the grand piano in the living room. "Can I touch it?" she asked. "Of course," Ethan said, sitting beside her. "Your mother used to play this." "You knew my mom well, didn't you?" she said suddenly. Ethan froze. "Yes," he whispered. "Very well." Lila smiled softly, pressing a few random keys. "She used to hum songs to me when I was little." "I remember her voice." Her words hit him like lightning. Anna's voice. The same melody he used to hear at night. "Would you like to learn?" he asked. She nodded eagerly. And so he taught her. Day after day she practiced, her tiny fingers learning notes that once belonged to her mother's heart. But as their bond grew, so did the whispers. Business partners questioned Ethan's sanity. "You brought a street girl into your house?" one of them said. "What will the board think?" "Let them think," Ethan replied coldly. "She's under my care." But one night, a document arrived, a DNA test he hadn't ordered. His assistant, acting on suspicion, had taken a hair sample from Lila's brush. Ethan unfolded the paper with trembling hands. DNA match 99.9%. He sank into the chair, tears flooding his eyes. "She's mine," he whispered. "My daughter." The realization broke him and healed him all at once. Every moment, the smile, the photo, the voice, it all made sense. Lila was the child Anna never told him about. He went to her room, his hands shaking. She was asleep, curled up like a tiny miracle. He sat beside her and whispered, "I'm sorry. For all the years I wasn't there." She stirred but didn't wake. Ethan brushed her hair gently. The little girl who sold flowers in traffic, who changed a billionaire's heart, was his own flesh and blood. The next morning when she woke up, he was waiting by the piano. "Lila," he said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." Lila blinked sleepily, rubbing her eyes. Ethan's tone was different today, softer but heavier. "What is it, Mr. Ethan?" she asked, sitting up. He took a deep breath, his fingers trembling slightly. "There's something I just found out. Something about you and about me." Lila frowned, confused. "About me?" He nodded, then handed her a folded document. "Before you read it, I need you to know none of this changes how I feel about you." Her small hands unfolded the paper slowly, her eyes scanning the strange words. She didn't understand much, but one sentence stood out: DNA match, 99.9%. Her lips parted. "What does this mean?" Ethan's voice cracked as he said, "It means you're not just a girl who came into my life by chance, Lila. You're my daughter." The room went silent. Lila froze, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it. "What?" she whispered. "No, that can't be true." Ethan stepped closer, his eyes glassy. "It is. Your mother, Anna, she and we were together years ago. She never told me she was pregnant. When she left, I looked for her, but she disappeared. I didn't know you existed." Lila's throat tightened. Tears filled her eyes before she even realized she was crying. "So, my mom knew you?" Ethan nodded painfully. "She was the love of my life." Lila's hands shook. "She told me my father died before I was born." Ethan exhaled shakily. "I'm so sorry. If I'd known, I would have found you. You never would have had to live that life." She turned away, overwhelmed. "All this time, I thought I didn't have anyone." "That I didn't belong anywhere." Ethan moved closer, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You belong here, with me. You always did." She turned, her tears falling freely now, and suddenly threw her arms around him. For the first time, Ethan held his daughter, not as a stranger, but as family. Both of them cried, for the lost years, for the pain, for the miracle of finding each other again. When they finally pulled apart, Lila whispered, "Mom would have been happy." Ethan smiled sadly. "I think she's the reason you found me." From that day on, everything changed. The mansion was no longer cold. Lila's laughter filled every corner, and Ethan found himself living again, smiling, eating, talking, even taking walks through the garden where Anna used to sit. But not everyone was happy about it. The board of directors began to whisper louder. Some claimed Lila was after money. Others said Ethan had lost his mind. One evening, as Ethan tucked her in, she looked up and asked, "Why do people talk about us like that?" He sighed. "Because they don't understand love that isn't bought." Lila smiled faintly, then let them talk. Days passed, and their bond grew stronger. Ethan enrolled her in a private school, hired tutors, and made sure she had everything she'd ever been denied. But even as she adjusted to her new world, Lila stayed humble. She helped the staff, donated her clothes, and often asked Ethan to visit her old neighborhood. "I don't want to forget where I came from," she said. He looked at her with pride. "You're more like your mother than I ever imagined." That night, Ethan sat by the piano, watching her play the melody Anna once loved. For the first time, he felt peace, but deep inside, he also felt fear. Because he knew happiness never came without a cost. And somewhere out there, someone was already watching them, someone who knew the truth about Anna's disappearance. A week later, Lila noticed something strange. A black car had been parked across the street every evening for days. At first, she thought it was security. Ethan had hired guards after the news broke about her identity, but this car never moved. One night, curiosity turned to unease when she saw a man step out, his face half hidden under a cap. He wasn't one of their drivers. He was watching the house. She ran to Ethan's study, breathless. "Dad, someone's outside." Ethan looked up from his desk, alarmed. He followed her to the window, but the car was gone. "It's probably nothing," he said gently, though his eyes betrayed worry. But it wasn't nothing. The next evening, when Lila went to the piano room, she found an envelope on the bench. Inside was an old photograph. Her mother, younger, smiling, with a man standing beside her. Not Ethan. On the back, a note read, "You don't know the full truth." Her hands trembled as she showed it to Ethan, his face drained of color. "That man," he whispered. "That's Michael, my former business partner." "Your partner?" she asked. "He disappeared years ago, after I accused him of stealing from the company. But Anna told me he was gone before I met her." He sank into his chair, realizing something that shook him to the core. "Lila, your mother was with him before she met me." Lila's voice broke. "Then, what if he's my father?" Ethan looked at her, his heart aching. "No, the DNA test was real. You're mine. But this means someone's trying to twist the truth." He stood abruptly. "We need to find out who." The next few days were filled with tension. Ethan hired investigators, checked security, and even met with the police. But whoever was behind it was careful, too careful. Then one night, Ethan received a call. A voice he hadn't heard in years said, "You took everything from me." "Ethan, now I'll take her." The line went dead. Ethan raced to Lila's room, but she was gone. The window was open, curtains flapping in the cold wind. Panic surged through him. "Lila!" he shouted, running through the halls. His guards found tire marks near the back gate. Someone had taken her. Hours passed before his phone rang again. "If you want to see her alive," the same voice said, "come alone." The old factory outside the city, midnight. Ethan didn't tell anyone. He drove himself there, headlights cutting through the fog. Inside the abandoned factory, shadows danced across the cracked walls. Then he saw her, Lila, tied to a chair but unharmed. "Dad!" she cried. Ethan stepped forward, hands raised. "I'm here." "Let her go." From the shadows, a man emerged. It was Michael, older, bitter, eyes filled with hatred. "You ruined me, Ethan, took my company, my future, my life." Ethan's voice shook with emotion. "You stole from me. You made your choices." Michael sneered. "Maybe, but now I take something from you." He pulled out a gun, pointing it at Ethan. Lila screamed, "Please, don't!" Ethan stepped forward slowly. "If you have to hurt someone, hurt me. But let her go." Michael's hand trembled. "She's yours, isn't she?" "The perfect little heir." "She's innocent," Ethan said. "Don't make her pay for what we did." For a long moment, the world held its breath. Then Michael lowered the gun slightly, eyes wet with anger and pain. "You don't get to win again," he whispered, and turned the gun toward himself. "No!" Ethan shouted, but the sound of the shot echoed before he could move. Silence followed. Hours later, the police arrived. The scene taped off, the factory quiet. Lila clung to Ethan, trembling. "Why did this happen?" she cried. He held her close, tears in his eyes. "Because sometimes people let hate blind them. But we choose love." Months passed. The mansion was different now, quieter, calmer. Lila often sat in the garden, where her mother once stood in the old photo. Ethan joined her one morning, handing her a small box. "What's this?" she asked. Inside was a silver locket, Anna's. "Your mother left it behind the day she disappeared," Ethan said softly. "I kept it all these years, waiting for the right time." Lila opened it. Inside was a photo of baby Lila and Anna, together. On the other side, a tiny note. "If she ever finds you, tell her she was always loved." Tears fell silently down her cheeks. She turned to Ethan, whispering, "I'm glad I found you." He smiled, brushing her hair gently. You didn't just find me? Lila, you saved me. The sun broke through the clouds then, casting golden light over them both, father and daughter, finally whole after years of pain, and for the first time in his life. Ethan felt what all his money could never buy, peace.